You've talked a lot about education, and that's near and dear to my heart. And Thomas Jefferson being the founder of our current education system, where yeah, you've been quoted as saying that he did. Well, it's not even that you quoted. This is the fact. He did not mean for everyone to be educated, and in many ways, we are. This is the education system that he imagined, where people are woefully uneducated or miseducated, and they have just enough to not be savages. How do we
First of
fix
all,
that?
he's talking about white males, right? And that the white male landowners were the people who were considered full people. I don't think the rest of us were. But the thing I love about that particular moment in Jefferson's history and notes for the state of Virginia is he lays out this plan for education, and the bottom line of that plan, Karen, is that it is created to find the excellent ones, and here's my favorite part, and throw out the rubbish. Your listeners may not believe me. All they need to do is Google Notes from the state of Virginia. You will find it and put in a find for the word rubbish, and it is there, the word rubbish. And so our education system right now in public schools is, it's a sorting mechanism. It's a sorting mechanism. And I don't know if it's looking for the excellent ones and the rubbish, but it certainly is throwing some people out.
I was talking with David West yesterday, NBA player, and he's creating a league for college kids who don't necessarily measure up. So you don't have to have taken an SAT or passed an SAT. He said there are so many great athletes out there who would never get an opportunity to go on because they don't measure up. And I'm putting up air quotes around that because we know as educators, there's no test that can really tell you who's ready or who's smart,
No kidding.
who can learn, because kids learn differently. And this education system is never designed, because I know in New York, if they put music to the Regents, kids pass. So for the kids that fail, if they put music to the Regents test and they study through using music, they pass. So clearly
That's
they
very
can.
interesting.
Yeah, clearly they can. They're smart, but they just
Yeah.
haven't figured out a way to educate kids who don't learn the same way as the standardized test will tell us we need to learn. What do you say to that?
Some kids just don't make it because either they get thrown out of school. And that was my last playing notes for the field was about the school to prison pipeline. They get thrown out of school for disciplinary matters. During the Obama administration, Justice Department did data to show that Black, Brown, Native American kids get expelled and suspended more frequently than middle class kids, and that poor kids I'm talking about, of course, and that a certain number of expulsions and suspensions absolutely predict that they will be spending the rest of their lives in and out of the criminal justice system in some kind of way. So, basically, if you're not in school, you're in trouble, right? So if you get suspended, that's one thing. And if school doesn't want you, the drug dealers do. At any age, they can make use of you. And also, some kids themselves leave school because they find that they can rather make dough in these industries that are dangerous, and those industries can also end you in jail. So it's not just that some folks have trouble learning, which is true, certainly, and thank God look, my mother was a reading specialist when I was growing up. They didn't talk about dyslexia then. So it is good that actually we've come to a time that more people can make it through a rigid system. My concern was the kids who can't make it because of disciplinary measures, and then we lose them. We lose them to reform schools and jails.
As if kids don't have disciplinary issues, all kids, but it seems like Black kids are demonized, and we know that the brain's not fully formed until mid-20s, and so we are dooming kids for a lifetime for mistakes that they make, that most kids make, and they never have to pay for it for the rest of their lives. We're talking with the great Anna Deveare Smith. Her book, Notes from the Field, you should go get it. We're going to tweet out a link to it, and it's also an HBO special as well. 866-801-8255 is the number if you want to speak with her. And as you're talking, I've been exploring this with several professors and other educators. It's not just that the system is broken. As you point out, Thomas Jefferson never designed it for us. But I think in many ways we emulated things, and I'm talking about Black people specifically, in our schools we emulated a system that never counted us as full human beings. So we are teaching. I know I learned Call It a Wild and Jack London and Chaucer, and I was an English major, and of course Dickens and all these things that I went to Catholic school. I didn't learn about Toni Morrison and all of the Octavia Butler, whose birthday was yesterday, and I didn't celebrate it, so I'm doing it now. And all of the great literature that came, Richard Wright and James Baldwin. I didn't study any of that till I went to college, and that was one teacher. One teacher. And that's not Black history. That should be American history, but also before slavery. In our history classes, we got that one lesson in my Catholic school on slavery. And I got to look in a book with Black people stacked in the holds of a ship. And I had all the kids, the white kids, look over at the Black kids, like feeling bad for us. And I felt really embarrassed and a whole host of other things. But I never learned about Mansa Musa, and I never learned about the Candaces, and I never learned about all of the great warriors of African descent, because our system is never designed to celebrate that. But I know everything about European history. And I know everything about, everything that's happened outside of the continent of Africa. So I think fundamentally, I don't know how we get to that, Anna Deveare Smith, but that has to be part of the discussion.
But hold on for a second, though, because there would be some people who would say, particularly Southerners, that our kids were better off really in segregation, right, in a way. But by the way, the schools are still segregated, so, right.
Yes.
It's not like it even ended. But my mother, her friends, all my aunts on both sides, right, great big family, 6 on the side of my father, 8 on the side of my mother, all the women were teachers. And I know that they dedicated their lives. First of all, a Black woman with a college education wasn't much she could do, other than Negro woman at the time they were called. Not much she could do other than teach or be a nurse. And they dedicated themselves. I'm sure, my mother was a race woman. I'm a race woman. They dedicated themselves to bringing along the race to another phase. And then, some folks would say that, so-called integrated schools were a good thing and a bad thing. But it's also that we devalued teachers along the way. Those women were seen as real leaders in their communities. They were respected in their communities. I'm not going to use foul language on your show.
You can, Anna Deveare Smith. This is Sirius XM. Say it.
I mean, but, you hear about, I heard about, kids calling teachers regardless of color a bitch, right? I mean, it's like the respect for the profession went downhill as well, for a lot of complicated reasons. And so the teacher didn't hold. I mean, look, you teach, I teach. Sometimes people in our profession, the sort of media profession will say, what are you doing? Oh, teaching? Is that like a low thing? Or are you still teaching? And so that's a low thing. And for me, teaching is first of all, it's another art form. And it's something that I'm as dedicated to as I am for everything else. And I just want to tell you that one time I did have a chance to come over to Hunter and talk to some of the kids over there, and I was so excited. I was so excited about their, confidence and what they wanted to do, and they actually weren't a little bit uptight. My students, I love my students at NYU and the ones I had at Stanford, but they want to be right. They want to be the smartest one. Mm-hmm. And I mean, my sisters and brothers over there at Hunter, I mean, like they were up on their feet. They weren't worried about whether they were right or not. I just loved it, how willing they were to express themselves and say what they were after. It was really gave me a lot of joy to see that.
I love teaching at Hunter, and I always juxtapose it to the time I spent at NYU, because you're going to get kids that are working. You may have kids that are parents. You're going to have kids from all walks of life. And it is, to me, it's probably one of the most diverse schools in the city for sure. But there's a sensibility of, there's no entitlement. And it's the best thing that I do. I often tell, why do I still teach? Because it's the best thing that I do, to be able to engage with young people. They teach me. And at the same time, you're imparting something on people who absolutely appreciate what you're giving them. And I stay in touch. And I have several of them working with us as we speak right now on Sirius XM. And, I'm glad that you said that. I appreciate that you acknowledge that about Hunter. So
that's I can't say nothing bad about my homies over at NYU, but I did want to say how excited I was to be in a classroom with Hunter students at one time that I was invited.